One more step, and my life could be at stake. In the southwest corner of Yellowstone National Park, on the border between Wyoming and Idaho, there is a 50-square-mile plot of land known as the Zone of Death. In here, the biggest threats to your life are not all that different than any other wild place. Grizzly bears, hypothermia, injury, scary, but not all that unusual. But there is one thing unique to this area that some have said make it perfectly deadly. Statistically, the odds of you being attacked by a bear in a place like Yellowstone are about 1 in a million, not very high. The odds of you suffering a life-threatening injury like a fall, concussion, or drowning are about 1 in 1,000. But the most dangerous threat you'll face, even in a place like this, are people. Which is why society has enacted laws to try to prevent people from attacking other people. Yet, even with those laws, you're still more likely to be attacked by another person than a bear. Now, imagine a place here in the United States where those laws can't, or at least won't, protect you. That is the theoretical problem with the so-called Zone of Death.
If they try to prosecute you for a crime you committed in the Idaho portion of Yellowstone, there would be no way for them to get a jury.
This is Professor Brian Kalt. Back in 2005, he discovered a legal loophole that makes this the only area where you might legally get away with murder. The problem starts with the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, granting anyone facing a criminal trial the right to a jury of their peers, selected both from the state and the district where the crime was committed. From there, it gets a little more complicated. Yellowstone is one of the few areas in the U.S. where state prosecutors don't have any legal jurisdiction, only the federal government, that has been divided into 94 distinct judicial districts. Everywhere in the nation, those districts don't cross state lines, except here. You see, most of Yellowstone resides in the state of Wyoming, but there are small portions that extend into Montana and Idaho. When Congress was assigning federal court districts, to make things easier, they assigned the entirety of Yellowstone National Park to the District of Wyoming. Therein lies the problem. Right now, I'm hiking in the state of Idaho, but the federal court district belongs to Wyoming. If I were to commit a crime right here, right now, and it went to trial, the jury could only be comprised of people who live in Idaho and the District of Wyoming, which would limit it to this small section of park. The only problem is, nobody lives here. Now, ever since I learned about it, I've been wanting to spend the night inside the Zone of Death, but figuring out a way to do that isn't always straightforward because we are dealing with imaginary lines on a map, and that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in, onX Backcountry. At the very beginning of this video, I was able to stand right on the edge of the Zone of Death at the border between Wyoming and Idaho. Now, there's no fence or sign labeling the border to the Zone of Death, yet I was able to walk right up to the edge because onX will tell me exactly where I am. Right now, I am hiking on one of only 3 trails that lead into the Zone of Death, and I plan to camp at one of only 3 campsites. You see, in places like Yellowstone, you can only camp in designated campsites that are conveniently labeled right there in the onX app, which makes planning a hike like this incredibly easy. I was able to look on the map, find one of the only campsites in the Zone of Death, see exactly how many miles I needed to hike, the elevation gain, trailheads, water crossings, and more. I then saved the map onto my phone for offline use and was able to keep track of my progress along the way. Depending on when you see this video, there could be a variety of sales, discounts, or promotions that might let you get onX for pretty cheap. So look down in the description below or follow the QR code on your screen for the most up-to-date information. And if you do decide to try onX Backcountry, do me a favor and fill out the exit survey to let them know that you heard about it from me. That's the only way that I'm able to make videos like this one. Now, back to the Zone of Death. Even though I've wanted to do this for some time, I didn't really anticipate just how nerve-wracking it was going to be. I camp alone quite a bit, and I don't usually get scared of mountain lions, bears, or anything else that might be out here, but there is something different about this place. and I think it stems from the area's publicity. Since its discovery in 2005, the Zone of Death has popped up in a variety of books, movies, YouTube videos, news reports, and even the popular TV series Yellowstone. After the horrific murder of Gabby Petito, not even 40 miles from the Zone of Death, several news outlets started talking about the legal loophole, and some state officials started to worry that something sinister could happen right there in their backyard. As bad as that is, there is a bit of nuance to what you may or may not be able to get away with out here, but not everyone talks about that, leaving the impression that this is an actual lawless zone. To be clear, murder is illegal here, it's just really difficult to prosecute. And if anyone ever tries to take advantage of that, it could get really, really bad.
Worst case scenario would be, first of all, that someone knows about the loophole and is doing this in reliance on it working. They commit the murder, they don't commit any other crimes, and then, completing the worst case scenario, the court agrees that this Sixth Amendment violation means the trial can't be valid and lets the person go.
Now, there are several ways the federal government might go after someone breaking the law in the Zone of Death. Very few crimes can be committed solely inside these borders. If you plan your attack with anyone outside the park, you could be prosecuted for conspiracy. If you transport your victim into the park, they could get you for kidnapping or bringing a gun across state lines. There's also misdemeanor charges that don't require a jury, civil suits, and a whole host of creative ways the prosecution can try to get around this legal loophole. To this day, there have been no known crimes committed inside the theoretical Zone of Death, but there was an incident in the Montana section of the park that tried to use the Zone of Death theory as a defense.
So there was a guy who poached an elk, and he was standing in the Montana portion, and so they charged him. And he didn't know about the Zone of Death theory, but his public defender knew about the theory, and so objected to having a trial in Wyoming with a Wyoming jury. And the judge said, in essence, now I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm not simplifying. This was the extent of the legal reasoning here. The judge said, well, that is what the Sixth Amendment says, but I can't just let him go.
Belderain eventually settled with the federal government and was given a lesser sentence for a guilty plea. But as part of that settlement, the government insisted he couldn't appeal the Zone of Death argument to a higher court. Now, there are a number of reasons why the government might not want this issue in the appeals court, but the real question is, why don't they just fix it?
The Justice Department said that they didn't want to redraw the district lines because Idaho and Montana are part of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and Wyoming's in the 10th Circuit. And back then, the Ninth Circuit was extremely liberal, and the 10th Circuit was more conservative.
Now, the 9th Circuit isn't as liberal as it used to be, and the 10th Circuit isn't as conservative. And despite all that, Yellowstone cases have ended up in the 9th Circuit anyway, so there doesn't seem to be any reason why this liability should continue. And until it is changed, we run the risk of someone thinking they can get away with murder, and even if we manage to get a conviction, someone will pay for it with their lives. Okay. And now I'm out of the Zone of Death, and I managed not to get killed. Hopefully everybody who visits this area can manage to do the same. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and do all those other things. And as always, thanks for watching.